We begin with a 13 News investigation. You know the saying, there are two sides to every story. That's exactly the case with this story we're about to share. A Belvidere man says police left him battered and bloody on Father's Day for no reason. Police say they were doing their job. Now, there was no body camera on police officers, but as 13 Investigates found out, there was a camera that did capture what happened that day. You can't see police arresting Paul Ainley, but you can hear it.
Hands behind
A neighbor's Nest camera captures audio of the Father's Day scuffle. 17 minutes after that scuffle began, an ambulance pulls away. Inside, a bloodied Ainley.
His knee was in the middle of my back, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get breath. I thought I was going to die. I've had arm surgery, numerous arm surgeries, and I couldn't get my arms behind my back. So he kept yelling, "Stop resisting." I told him I wasn't resisting. I can't get my arms back there, and he started punching me in the face.
Hospital records obtained by 13 Investigates show Ainley was subdued by police and struck in the face many times. And Ainley says it was all over a misunderstanding by police.
He said, "Give me the child or you're going to jail."
The child is Ainley's grandson, a 5-year-old boy at the center of a bitter custody battle between his parents. His mother had custody because, according to court documents, a judge revoked all visitation of Nick Wisely, the child's father. That's why Ainley says he was so surprised to see police and Wisely at his door Father's Day morning.
They thought he had custody and was going to take the kid, going to take my grandson.
His grandson was visiting him for Father's Day. Ainley says things took a terrible turn with an officer named Matthew Korn.
I closed the door and said, "You need to get a search warrant." And as soon as I started to close the door, he pushed the door open, came into my house, grabbed me, pushed me out to the front porch. I put both my hands up in the air, and he just pushed me off the porch.
That's not what the officer said happened.
Once the officer got to the door and somebody answered the door, things escalated in a matter of seconds.
According to the police report, Officer Korn says Ainley put his finger on his chest, pushing him. It goes on to say Ainley tried to run away while Korn was arresting him.
Had Mr. Ainley simply said, "No, we're not releasing the child," that would have been the end of it.
Ainley says that's exactly what he said. And he says the neighbor's Nest cam proves it.
Hey, go away. I don't have a search warrant. Get away from my house. Get away from my house. Now you put your hands on me.
Chief Woody says Ainley wasn't listening to the officer's commands.
If people comply, there's no need to use force. This isn't a situation where somebody, put their hands behind their back and was willing to be handcuffed.
But this story isn't just about police use of force. It's about why police were there in the first place.
We had been shown court documents that said that Nick Wisely was supposed to have visitation on that day.
But remember, a judge revoked Wisely's custody. Police say they didn't know that and never questioned the document Wisely gave them.
Is an officer going to potentially take a court order on its face? Sure, without any information to the contrary that court order is invalid.
Chief Woody says Ainley never tried to show police proof that court order was old.
I think it's important to understand that, again, you are relying on information that the officer didn't have that day. And it was...
But how is that their fault? How is it in terms of that family?
How is it the officer's fault?
So whose fault is it?
Well, had the Mr. Ainley complied when he was told he was under arrest, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
But he shouldn't have been under arrest in the first place.
Says who?
There was no... what did he do wrong?
Again, that's a judgment that the officer had made on scene that particular day. Again, information that I'm comfortable to comment says it escalated. And the officer felt it necessary to take Mr. Ainley into custody. And the law specifically states that even if the arrest itself is unlawful, nobody has a right to resist it.
I can't breathe. Call an ambulance.
On your stomach.
Call an ambulance. I can't breathe. Hurry. Hurry.
Ainley says his swollen face and bruised arms will heal, but he says his faith in the Belvidere Police Department may never recover.
You see that kind of stuff and you wonder, what could they have done to make the cops that angry? And now I know it's nothing. You can wake up in the morning and answer the door.
Ainley was charged with battery and resisting arrest. Due to the charges, he says he lost his job. The Ainleys hired an attorney and plan to sue the police department. They filed a formal complaint against the officer involved in his arrest. Chief Woody says the arresting officer is still on duty and an internal investigation into what happened on that day is ongoing. The person in charge of that investigation is Chief Woody.